Hi, everybody, and welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today we know the finale of season 2 of Squid Game. My name is Mike Bloom. Welcome, everybody. January 1st, 2025 is when this podcast is being released, and talking about starting the year off with a bang. In fact, many bangs coming from many rifles and pistols as firefight emerges, a revolution begins. Was this Gi-hun's plan all along? Either way, it ends up getting snuffed out by the end of this, much like poor Jung-jae. But let me talk to my bae, who has been here the entire time on this ride of Squid Game Season 2, Chappell. Hi, Chappell.
Mike, hi. I was speechless. I was not expecting this to happen. I don't know what I expected to happen, but it wasn't this. I did not think that we were going to see a full out, just like you said, gunfight here at Squid Game. And yeah, I have so many questions about Gi-hun, his plan. Was this a plan anyway, or is this just something that happened? I have no clue where to even start. But we're done. We already finished Squid Game season 2, and now I guess we wait the entire year for season 3.
Yeah, it depends on what we mean by year. So Netflix recently put out a teaser of like, hey, here are really popular shows that are coming back in 2025, which featured Wednesday, which featured Stranger Things last season, and Squid Game as well. So it really depends on when they want to release it. Just trying to figure in those few series. Stranger Things, I imagine, is going to probably be a summer series, maybe a fall series if they want to do something around Halloween, or they could also put Wednesday in around Halloween as well, given the spooky themes of that. So obviously, I don't think they're going to air their big prestige series at the same time. There is also the Emmy consideration as well, where I would imagine that they might aim for like a Squid Game, maybe early summer
Oh.
release. I'm not entirely sure. I might be speaking out of my ass here, so we shall see. Who knows? Maybe they end up turning it around for February. But considering how Netflix is now dabbling into the practices of like splitting up 8 episode seasons like Bridgerton to try to get people to pay extra money to watch it, I imagine they're going to try to stretch out Squid Game season 3 at least a smidge and not put them in like both seasons in a 3 month window.
But see, that's very frustrating to me because it already feels like by having season 2 and season 3 in close succession like this, that it feels like they probably already did that. Like this really could have been 2 seasons. And you're like, okay, now I'm gonna stretch it out to make it a third season. Then we're gonna stretch that out and do like the first 4 episodes here and then drop the second 4 episodes there. It's too much. It's too much because this season ending on a cliffhanger is almost like it's Squid Game, so you know it kind of has to end on a cliffhanger, but it still feels like it's a little incomplete for me. Like I needed more from season 2.
Yeah, and again, I had not seen any future episodes as we were talking about each of these daily, but I had a feeling, especially knowing that season 3 was coming and that there were rumblings that it would be the third and final season, was confirmed by the creator in his like big letter to Tadum that was released after season 2 ended up premiering. That again, Squid Game will be ending with season 3. That I thought, okay, so especially given the fact that they probably filmed seasons 2 and 3 together, there's a very sizable chance that we will get a even more generous cliffhanger than season 1, especially once we started pacing things out. And obviously, at the point shit starts hitting the fan, we're only 3 games in, and so we'll talk about obviously maybe a teaser of more games to come. What this really is, Chappelle, at the end of the day, with this jam-packed finale, is the Empire Strikes Back ending, which is the like, okay, there was this one-off initial season 1 that they didn't initially conceptualize to be a recurring thing. They did, both due to popular demand and the fact that the poor creator sold off the streaming rights and so made no money from the wild success of season 1. So they made season 2, but now they know, okay, there is a third part coming. So let's sort of conceptualize it as a 2-season package. And so we end things on, even for Squid Game's sake, a quite hopeless note when it comes to some of our main characters.
Yeah, but to me, I felt like although it put us in a spot where we're like, dang, well, I don't know how they're gonna get out of this one. It made me feel like at least we moved the story to the point that I'm very interested because Inho was my big question mark. What is he
Yeah.
gonna do? What is his role here now that he's playing Squid Game? Is he gonna try to run this to the end? What's gonna happen? And by the end of this, he's put the mask back on. It seems like he's back on the other side. He's the front man, and he's still killing people. He's back on his OBS, but that leads me to believe that at least in the next season we're going to get to the nitty gritty. It feels like almost like the whole Squid Game of it all this time was just a placeholder. It was just something we were doing, treading water, kind of just giving the tension to build between the two of these characters to the point where now we're at the point of no return, and everybody's picked their side. There's no more game. It's now, how do we shut this thing down? Well, Mike, hold on. I thought there was no more game, but then we get this random credit scene. What is
Yeah.
going on? Who is this Sarah Beth man?
Yeah, listen, she's shacked up at the moment. We'll get to that in a little bit because yeah, we did get again to I guess the betterment of having seasons 2 and 3 filmed together is like we actually do have. It's not a post credit scene. It's like a pre credit scene. I wouldn't even call
Yeah,
it a scene.
mid.
It's like 3 shots with 10 seconds basically all together. So we will certainly get to that because that is really the only like solid glimpse we have of season 3. Obviously, there's a lot of questions, a lot of characters' fates left up in the air. I think it makes sense maybe from the main storylines perspective because there also were some things that were tied up, at least with our other 2 big storylines going on. If we go like somewhat chronologically here, because the big thing is okay. For those that for some reason thought that Thanos would not die due to a fork being stuck in his neck, turns out that yup, he is dead, as are 4 other people. And so the big tension is going to come from the fact that even as we spoke about last episode, 5 bodies have hit the floor. 3 of them are O's, 2 of them are X's. So the X's have a very slim majority right now, but it will not be for long. Keihun talks about the fact that, okay, now I really know, both from experience and how tense things have gotten, that all these O's are going to sneak over and just start slaughtering people. But don't worry. I'm trying to reel in a big fish here. I'm not just skimming for minnows at this point. I'm going for the front man. So the first question we have to pose, Chappell, is, you talk about Inho being a big question mark. I think Keihun has been a big question mark as well, where when he joins up with Junho, I guess the initial plan was to try to meet face to face with the front man on Halloween. And then when Keihun is taken, he's like, great, I still have the tracker in my 2 so they can find me. That ends up getting sent south. So how improvised was this idea for Keihun of, okay, we're going to take an opportunity in this moment when we know that there's going to be a bunch of people coming in. We're going to take them none the wiser and try to basically bulldoze our way up to HQ and take down the front man.
Keihun has seen this before. Last season, it was like, all right, with like people are gonna start getting wild at the nighttime. Eventually tensions are gonna just boil over to the point where they have to fight. This is very different. This is like that's coming, but also we already had the tension. We already had the fighting. It's in the bathroom. People are dying. People's like friends are being killed in this. So it's gotten to the point where yes, there's some beef between the X's and O's, but the X's have the numbers, and we can't allow that to happen. For the O's, they almost suffer no consequence in murdering these people on the X side. Like they have to die anyway if I plan on winning the game, and if we plan on making a vote, at least we'll win the vote. So they're coming over here, and there's nothing we can do to stop them. So Keihun, he has to like actually like kind of improvise in a way to say, okay, we got to do something tonight. Now, his actual plan, Mike, is what I'm kind of looking at him crazy for, because he says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to let all the rest of the X's die.
Yeah.
It's like, what? It's like, yeah, we're just going to hide. I know we could probably win the fight if we stayed, but we can win the war if we hide. And so we're just going to run away, retreat, let them all die. These people that we've come to know and at least kind of see, I won't say care about, but some of them characters that we've kind of grown, with, they've been throwing us these red shirts that they can write off eventually. We got a bunch of them, a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they hide it out and then pop out and just try to steal the guns from the guards. And it works, right? The plan works for the most part, but at what cost? At some point he has to look at himself and say, like, am I part of the problem here? Like, am I doing more harm than good?
That's the interesting thing, is that, and this is what causes a very interesting look from Inho, that honestly, I think we'll talk about his motivations. In retrospect, like, had Keihun been so, forthcoming as to say, all right, all the X's are going to hide under their beds and we're all going to work together, maybe Inho would be like, all right, this is a little too hand-holdy new era Survivor for me. Like, I'm just going to stop this right here, right now. But I think Inho's a little bit like, no, wait, hold up. Like, he's cooking right now. Let's figure this out. That I think Keihun had been presenting himself as someone who would never step in the kitchen and would never roll up his sleeves and start handling some of these ingredients. That again, the reason he gloated to the front man in that limo saying like, no, 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 I passed this bet. There is still good that can exist in this world, and I am going to re-enter the games to show it to you. And for him to just kind of loosely throw out, yeah, it's a sacrifice for the greater good. I mean, that's speaking Inho's love language right now, because that's the entire purpose of the games. Is like there is this greater good of, again, expunging all the quote unquote trash from this world. And so that's the tough thing about villains, Chappell, is like they can rationalize it to any one of their demented worldviews and feel like they are doing the right thing. And now for someone who, again, was relatively bloodless in season one, Keihun has shed a fair amount over the course of one episode. Even one step further, where, yeah, there's the exes that he just let die and get slit in their beds. And then there were these other people that, granted, did enlist, did sign up to go through his, what basically ended up being a suicide mission, but also died due to his leadership.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Inho like, you're a little preachy. You're a little preachy. Like, we get it. You know, it's like Keihun says the thing out loud, like, oh, you know, we gotta break a few omelets to make an egg. I mean, or whatever, a few eggs to make an omelet. And it's funny because Inho is sitting there like, yeah, exactly, right. Like,
Yeah,
you get
now
where
you're
I'm coming
getting it.
from. Now you're seeing it. Like, hold on. Stop it. You know, I know we lost Thanos in this episode, but it reminded me of the original Thanos argument, which is like, this sounds gruesome, but it could be better for us long term. I'm thinking, no, shut that down. I don't like how preachy he's being about this, because we get it. You're trying to really push this narrative that, okay, sometimes people got to die. We have to take some losses in order to move forward. Some people need to be sacrificed so some people can thrive and flourish. But again, you're the problem. You're still, it's like, let's not get distracted by what's really going on here. Is helping this cog in the machine. Like, he's kind of greasing the wheels on this one and making sure that it goes in the direction that he wants. So then he's like, see, look at what I'm saying. Isn't it working out? We shouldn't even be in this situation. Yeah. Had you voted with us the first time, we'd be gone. I don't know if y'all remember, but he was on the other side. So I don't like it. Because it's almost like you can see like almost like his narrative coming together for when he has to finally outline all of this for Keihun in the end. Because it's going to come down to him saying like, don't you understand now that it had to happen? You were willing to sacrifice these people. You're no better than I am. I get it, but I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it.
I mean, what's interesting from the Inho perspective is, though, again, I think that he could have snuck off in the middle of the night and be like, hey guys, just so you know, this thing is going to happen. But he chooses not to. He also chooses to expend a surprisingly extraordinary amount of people in these pink jumpsuits, just to like really dig in the knife, not literally, that's done with bullets, but to like really bring Keihun to his doorstep and be like, yeah, this was basically me just letting you play your fantasy out the entire time, and now here's a harsh dose of reality. What I did think was interesting was, obviously we did not get this behind the scenes perspective when it happened in season one, but when we see some of the soldiers go into the dorms, I do find it interesting that the voiceover, the announcer, calls it like the special game, and that basically this is always going to be a step in every Squid Game. It's sort of like game 3.5 of, okay, you survived, mingle, but now you're going to mingle in a very different way. And so this is like a surprise mini game that you have to win. This is like the mid boss that you have to pass in the Zelda dungeon before moving on to the next temple. And so that's very interesting, the way that it just seems like a constant, though there was a big variable in this case in that, I don't know, I guess seemingly for the first time in the history of the games, they were able to take advantage of the fact that, yeah, if we just like cover ourselves in other people's blood and lie down on the ground, no one's going to check if we're breathing or not. They got so many bodies to go through, and that is when we make our move.
Yeah, it's an insurrection of sorts. And I thought it was very crazy because they get the guns, they kill a bunch of the pink jumpsuit people. I'm like, good, take them, hit them again, whack them for me. And then they think about the idea of these O's just did like some gruesome stuff. These O's just came over here and they really popped off, a massacre of sorts.
Yeah.
What if we just started shooting them? And I'm thinking, yes, get them again, get them for me. See, that at that point, yeah, I'm down. The O's started it as far as I was concerned. Take them out. But they're like, no, we can't. We're no
worse than those people with the masks if we do
God.
that.
give it a rest. You just like sacrificed a bunch of exes just a second ago with no remorse because you think it's part of the bigger plan. That's what's like, boo, 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 kill
Well,
these O's.
yeah, I mean, X's were very much team when they go low, we go high, right? Of like, no,
Yeah.
I would not bring myself to that level. I'm just going to kill a bunch of employees instead because they're quite literally faceless. I will say, Chappelle, I completely agree, especially when once the dust settles in this first skirmish and like we have, all of our main X's in front of us is also very good that I think Team X is able to benefit a lot from the fact that they have a significant military experience
A
on their
lot of
side.
military experience. I was like, oh, that's good writing because I was wondering like, how exactly is this ragtag group of misfits? No, they actually have combat training,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah,
Oh
with the
yeah, I,
exception of
I mean,
maybe
I
one.
would say honestly, the MVP of the episode might be Hyunju, might be
Oh,
120.
easy,
Like, I know
easy.
that she had talked about that she was a soldier, but like, I did not realize she had that significant amount of leadership experience and military experience. So, like, to your point, really great storytelling in that regard. But when Keihun's like, "All right, this is our plan. If anybody wants to step up, do so." I don't think it's coincidental at all that these maroons, ironically enough, not wearing maroon in the blue O's, none of them say a word.
Right.
These outright cowards stay behind with all of like the quote unquote women and children in the crypts of Winterfell and are like, yeah, you know what? Let them fight it out. We'll just see what happens. Win win either way. Either they die and we keep going, or they're able to take things over and we can reap the benefits. Like, get off of your high horses, you assholes that did this whole big grandstanding last episode of I can't believe you're such cowards that you're gonna leave the game right now. We're the brave ones. When they're asked to put their lives on the line in a completely different way than what they do in a much more demented basis, that they're like, couldn't be me. So sorry.
No,
We're just gonna sit and
no.
hang out and see what happens.
Like it feels like they're hoping that okay, worst case scenario, they fail. These people with the guns, they go in there, they
Mm-hmm.
lose, and then they say, keep the Squid Game going. Let's get this money popping again. It's like that's not going to happen. There was an insurrection in the middle of this whole game. They're about to send you all home with nothing. Like just go ahead and call it what it is. The odds that these people are like, all right, keep the party going. We're gonna take another vote. Look, it's not happening. So just shut it down. Help out at least. Try to make yourself useful. Nope. They're hoping that all right, they'll kill all of them and then we can still get this money. And so that just goes to show you the amount of greed, but also maybe even just the bad blood between the two sides. Because for the people who were actually in the restroom, they come out knowing exactly what happened, right?
Yep.
The O's popped it off, the X's, defended themselves, and then it became a whole thing. But everybody else just gets their secondhand account of what happened. Like, oh, no, 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 you got to listen. It was the X's, I promise. They started it. They started
Yep.
killing us. So you could be a background player, oh, I'm just here to get some money and that's it. I'm not really involved in all the violence. But now you see how dastardly the X's could come off if you're believing the O side. You're like, nah, I can't help them. Are you crazy? They're the reason why we're in this mess in the first place. So there's probably some added layers to why the O's don't help, but I still don't respect it.
I will also, unfortunately, especially in retrospect, give a brief shout out to the sort of like soft hand, hard hand approach that Keihun and Jung-jae take, where Keihun does this like entire Braveheart speech, and then Jung-jae kind of like softly steps forward and is like, I know we're all scared right now,
Yeah.
but I think it'd be great if as many people joined as possible. I mean, we'll talk about this later, obviously, Chappelle. I think you and I had talked about this for a while when Inho was still playing up his character, that we thought that Jung-bae would be taken out as sort of the middleman between these two figures, and it will eventually happen. I think in retrospect, especially watching it a second time, they set it up fairly well of like, yeah, let's make this character as sympathetic as possible, have him banter with Ki-hoon as the two of them just start really mowing their way down Lethal Weapon style, all of these masked people, only for him to get mercilessly killed off in the end.
Yeah, this was some good, just like character building for Jung-bae, who I could have cared less about throughout the season. Because there were definitely moments where you look at him and think he's not a great friend to Ki-hoon. Like we're finding out about their past. Oh, you messed up my marriage. You messed up my marriage. You were drunk. You were doing all this other stuff. You weren't there for me when I needed my loan. So I've always kind of been looking at him sideways. Like this guy, he's probably a little bit more, hot air than I would like to, than the show is leading us to believe. But then I think it was last episode we had their kind of bonding moment
Right.
where they're sitting around like, man, like we actually saw some life between the two of them. Okay, this is actual friendship. And then in this episode, he's a second in command. I think we come so far from where we couldn't even trust him to vote with us, and now he's like legitimately like the lieutenant in Keihun's army, and so he's coming in, and because he was in the military, he's very valuable in these moments as well, and so throughout you're just gaining more and more respect for him until finally he's snatched away, and that's what good TV does, right?
Right.
It helps you care about somebody before eventually taking them off the board altogether, and then that way you feel the loss a lot more. And Squid Game had not been doing a good job of making me care about a lot of these characters. We've been learning a lot about them, but me and you've been sitting around like, this person's probably going to die. This person might die. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be mad if this person died. But we were saying this so flippantly. By the end of this, I was like, dang, we really lost Jung-jae. I wasn't ready for that.
True, though I do think that to have Jung-bae be like the only main character casualty, besides obviously Thanos' carryover, surprisingly slim. I guess this also makes sense again, given the fact that it was seemingly kind of created as like a 2-season arc. That I'm imagining there's going to be a lot more heads to roll in part 2, especially now that any sort of upstart revolution does end up ultimately failing. I mean, let's talk about this revolution overall. Maybe we'll get into like some of the smaller character moments here, because I would imagine, and I've been reading obviously some feedback about how some felt that this finale was very much and now for something completely different. That I think something that made this show such a hook in the first place was the visuals of having these people play these life or death games that seem so simple on the surface but have such high stakes to them. And then this was a bit more of like an action movie, What's
Mhm.
basically going to follow the rest of this storyline is a group of what? Less than 10 people exchanging heaps of gunfire on their way to the control room to hopefully take things over and get the front man in front of them. And obviously, there's a little bit of wrinkles contained therein, but it does seem like something completely different from what the Squid Game had done before in tone. And I'm not always mad at that, but what did you think, Chappell? Did you think this was sort of a proper ending for season 2?
Because we have to wrap this eventually, I think you do have to move away from the actual Squid Game of it all. I think that you come into season 2 and you see, we have to have our red light, green light. There's just some flagship moments that you have to pay homage to from season 1, because that's what got people here. And
Hmm.
I think once you do the first 2 or 3 games, you can say, all right, we did it again. But like, this is not a show about how many times can we run the Squid Game and how many different winners we can get. Like, I think at some point, and I've never seen the Hunger Games, but I think even they have to move away from, all right, we've now moved from being in the Hunger Games to how do we stop the people in charge of making this
Yeah, I
happen.
mean that was first 2 were Hunger Games, and then spoiler alert for Mockingjay, it was none of that. They had absolutely they were feeding, they were well fed, no more hunger in the Hunger Games.
Exactly. And so here, I think you have to start moving away from that storyline. But, with the way they did the season where it's only 7 episodes, and we know we get these like binge model like drops on Netflix sometimes, it feels a little cheap to me, because we waited so long for this. And then for you to give us 7 episodes that kind of end with a question mark, you're thinking, dang, we got to do this all over again. And to what you were saying earlier, if they do decide to split the last season up again, it's like we're gonna just drag this thing out when we could really be moving toward a solution or an ending to what's going on. So I like that they move the story away from the games. Those things are over. Let's start working on what the end game will be here, and it's gonna take them taking down the administration and moving away from this like one-on-one competition aspect we've been looking at before.
Yeah, and not to spoil too much about Catching Fire, the second Hunger Games series, but it does follow a similar structure in that started with a rather conventional, okay, we're doing the Hunger Games again, and then the world quite literally gets broken in the middle of it, and they kind of just eschew that in lieu of a more unconventional ending. And so again, that tracks for me. I really cannot decide how I feel about it though, because like it was certainly interesting and it will lead to some surprising character moments, both positive and negative, that we will get into. On the other hand, there is this hanging sort of Damocles of, okay, Keihun is trying his best. All these people are trying their best with surprising success, but they're always going to lose because the boss is right there. The
Yeah.
mole is a big mole, and he's going to eventually say at one point, it's almost like watching an episode of Dragon Ball Z where like all the minor characters fight Frieza or Cell, and it seems like they have the upper edge. They're like, okay, now I'm actually going to try, and then just absolutely kicks all their asses. That you knew there would be an eventuality. Now, whether Inho actually reveals himself to Ki-hun as the frontman would be one thing, but you knew eventually the front man would step in and be like, okay, we're done with this. This was never actually going to happen. I would never allow that. And so on the one hand, it does provide this sense of dread in my gut of like, oh, they are really thinking they're doing their best. They think that they are changing things for the better when really they're just falling into a trap. On the other hand, that is the feeling that Squid Game is supposed to provide as a concept.
Yeah. Oh, Dragon Ball Z was such a good reference because it's very Cell games.
Yeah.
Here you go fight with these minions, my little baby cells. You go
Yeah.
do that. We'll dispatch a couple y'all, but you haven't even seen me at my final form yet. And Inho is just walking around, just like, oh yeah, they're gonna die when they see this part, right? When I finally take off this mask, people are gonna go wild. So he's always gonna make sure that there's nothing these people can actually do to get any momentum, even though it looks like they are, right? For a second, when they're hitting the hallways and they're shooting out the cameras and they got like the military tactics going, I was like, okay, I think we're making some, we're getting somewhere here. And then we see Inho kind of moving closer in, getting closer to the action. Oh yeah, I got eyes on such and such. Like he's like right there in the mix. But then he slowly stops helping, and then eventually we see the front man appear again. It's like, dang, he went and switched into his other outfit. He took his mask off and put a mask on. And now he's like, all right, now you've made it this far. Let me shut you down and show you exactly what I've been talking about this whole time. It was good. It was very good, but it was like one of those things where it was inevitable, right? You knew he wasn't just going to go along with the
Thanos is dead,
because he's in charge.
Chappell.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So many Thanos references for sure. But it was one of those things where, I was just waiting on him to kind of reveal himself. And although he's still under the shroud of mystery, like they don't know it's Inho, it's just not going to stay a secret for much longer. Like we're definitely going to get that reveal early into season 3, probably.
All right, so I want to work through this kind of in the 3 locations that we leave things with our revolutionaries. Let's go back to the dorms here because Daeho. We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. And
we really were.
It's interesting because, again, we talked about this when he was first introduced of like, they're kind of using the Dodo music. He's a bit more of like a very energetic comic character. What's going on with this guy? And I don't know, Chappell, what are we to make of this? Because I think the 2 basic rates we could have of Daeho is like, yes, he was a Marine, but he didn't have any combat experience. And so he's incredibly afraid of any firefight. Or he has like significant PTSD. And so when he hears gunfire, it makes him absolutely panicked. And I also don't know on top of that, like how much he screwed up the entire mission. Because again, Inho was going to step in no matter what. Did it really matter at the end of the day that Daeho couldn't deliver the magazines?
Well, I'm sure a couple people are dead now that would have probably been alive.
Yeah, but we don't care about them.
Yeah,
no offense to 047, who had a real coming out episode here.
We really don't care about them at all. And that's the crazy part, right? Is that they just gave us so many characters that you just looked at enough to where you thought, like, do I care about them? Only to see them die in this episode. Daeho, to me, based on his backstory, it really feels like his dad forced him to go to the military, and like he was never really cut out for that, right? He went to the Marines, but just because he went, like you said, maybe no combat experience, it feels like his whole life they were trying to make him a man, like, oh yeah, you're playing these games with your sister, all those things. And we get the Dodo edit. We get people laughing at him in that one episode where he's like, I was a Marine. They're like, yeah, whatever. But boo, we don't care. So I think it was just more of that. It's just he was in the military, but he wasn't built for combat. And so now that it's time for combat, he's doing what he can. And it's not much. He has a whole panic attack. He's supposed to go get the magazines. Like, I gotta at least go get the ammo. And he just freezes up. He gets the ammo. He's not able to deliver it. And so we have to move on. It's like, Daeho, I wish we could stay here and coddle you, but if you're not shooting nobody, you're really in the way. And so it was tough to see him kind of take this kind of fall, because I would say that he was one of my favorites throughout the season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Someone else who ends up making her way back there, I guess for the best, because again, had she been left on those stairs like she was kind of shooting out initially, then there's a very good chance that she is gunned down along all those other people. But Myunji decides, or Hyunju, I should say, decides to go back, see what's going on with Daeho. Really sweet moment, I think, with Jung-jae, with 149, who, like, she's about to really go full Rambo and be like, all right, I'm going to take them all down single-handedly. And she's like, no, don't die like this. Which, again, I think spoke really nicely to the overall arc that they had, which, listen, we called even from the jump of like, yeah, she's making these offensive comments about her gender. Chances are she's going to learn to love her by the end, and that's represented by that. But now this is going to leave things in an interesting place because at least my assumption, Chappell, and we'll talk about this later on, is that I think the games will resume. And so now we have a bunch of our characters kind of left in limbo here in case anything does go down in the dorms. Of course, we have our mother-son duo in 149 and 007. We've got Junho and MG Coin who like are kind of on the mend, or at least like she's being somewhat sympathetic to how shell-shocked he is due to the fact that he still has Thanos' blood all over him, where she's like, yeah, don't go hide, don't do anything during the firefight, don't be a hero. Like, she clearly wants him to either stay protected or to just like not make things worse for himself by trying to feel like he's atoning for his sins.
She cares if he's alive or not, you know, and I think that's the most we can give her. She's like, hey, I can't tell you what the plan is, but it's about to go down, and clean yourself up. You know, like you don't need people looking at you and seeing you
Clean
covered
that up
in
a
this
little
man's
bit.
blood. Right, exactly. You have 30 minutes. Do you know you have 30 minutes? That's kind of how she looked at him, like, hey, get it together because it's about to go down, and the best thing you can do is hide. For one, you're a big target here. You know, you're a part of, you know, the initial conflict in a lot of ways. You are, you know, also a reason, like a lot of people are putting, I guess, the reason they're in the Squid Game based on you, you know, and your, you know, poor advice when it comes to this investing in this crypto and all that stuff. So she's giving him the heads up, but that's it. You know, she's like, all right, aside from that, I don't know what to tell you. And so I enjoyed that part, but I'm hoping that he's not winning her over too much because I still think he's a scammer. Like I still think if he gets out, he's like, all right, so you take your money, I take my money, and let's see what happens. But Mike, you mentioned that the Squid Game is probably going to continue after this. I think that takes the vote off the table, right? Because at this point, the people who are coming back, if they are to come back alive, they're going to be, you know, vastly outnumbered. It's not even going to be close.
And also, you could say it was a bit of a spiritual victory for the O's, in that it's like, well, the X's tried to enforce their opinion and it failed. So we're just going to count this a victory for the O's and move on. Or they could do it as sort of like a slap on the wrist by being like, there will be no more votes from here on out.
Right.
Again, we shall see, because now Inho, I think, is firmly back in charge. I will also say, and this is so tough because, again, I pride mental health. I feel when characters feel, but like, Minsu could go. I
Go.
like
Useless.
at least
Useless.
at least Daeho, for all of the various tough times that he had in this episode, to your point, did attempt to do something. Did say, okay, I may have had very little combat experience, but I will put myself in the front lines here. I'll put my life on the line. Okay, I'm useless here. At least I'll try to be like a delivery boy for the magazines. Mitsu smashes a bottle, like has that one moment of bravery, then immediately ducks his head back in and just listens as like his number one supporter just ends up getting slaughtered by the junkie, and then just kind of hangs out panicked for the rest of the episode. And again, look, I am sympathetic to those that are just like frozen with panic the entirety that they're there, but I kind of just keep waiting for Minsu's big move, and I don't know if Minsu's big move is coming.
He left 380 out to dry. You know, he throws the bottle down. I'm like, yes, he's back. Okay, because we've been getting these longing glancings between these two people, right? You could tell she kind of like, hey, don't let these people bully you. He's very quiet, a little mousy when it comes to this kind of thing. And she's like, all right, look, you can do better than this. We saw him kind of cheat her in that game of rock, paper, scissors. He really screwed this lady over like several times already, and we don't talk about that enough. So when she gets murdered with the fork, I'm like, Minsu, jump down, kick him in the face, do something, spit on him. I don't know, pinch him, do something. He just there. And so, you know, when it comes to these people that we've kind of known to love, or known to at least have some type of fondness for, these background characters, he's one that I'm like, all right, I think he has to have such a much bigger role in season 3, because why did they keep him alive of all the people? If he's not going to help in the fight, and he's not like a particularly big character, but we have to seemingly follow his storyline throughout, why is he important and why is he still here?
I still think that we're getting a setup for he will eventually have his moment where he kills Namgyu either directly or like leaves him out to die. I really
It's
think
the least he could do. It's
Yeah,
the least he could do, Mike.
I really think that we're building up towards that. Obviously, there was the bullying and threats that led to the entire bathroom skirmish in the past couple episodes, and now it's like, it's personal. You know, you ended up single-handedly killing my girl. Could also be that, like, Namgyu overdoses and Minsu doesn't help him, right? Because Namgyu's starting to really pop those pills. He was the one that was quite literally out in front when they end up slaughtering all these exes. So I feel like this guy's going to have a fall far in next season.
Yeah, this guy's tough because he's now has Thanos' drugs. He's like, all right, I miss you, man. You never got my name right or anything like that, but it's all good. And then he just starts popping like, hey, bro, slow down, slow down. But I think for him, he knows what's about to come, right? He knows like our next move is we gonna have to go kill some of these exes, and I got to get myself in a good mind space to go do that. And I definitely don't see him lasting throughout. I would hate that because why are we keeping him around? But it's one of those things where I'm looking at Minsu like you have what one possible redeeming thing that you can do, right? You have one win condition, and that is to make sure Namku doesn't make it to the end. You have to kill him. You have to take him out. You owe him that much. He's asking for it at this point. Go handle your business. But one of them has to go soon. And I'd hate to be rooting against Minsu, but he's not bringing anything to the table if he doesn't complete the mission.
All right, let's move to this middle ground. And I only bring it up because, again, it's relatively full of some nameless people, especially once 120 does go back to the dorms. But there is one exception, Chappell. A cliffhanger, or is it? So, the middle group decides to surrender. One of them is 246, who, as you remember, is the father of this little young cute ill girl who had this bond with Noel, who ends up collapsing before she goes into the Squid Game, and it turns out that he goes in because he needs to afford her medical bills for this surgery. And so again, they surrender. It does not go well. They're not going to take them alive. They said it several times over the PA. If you are out of your dorms, you will be eliminated from the game. And so they do. And we think at least he does. Chappell, I do not. I think 246 is still alive because just of the way it was staged and the arc that we know of Noel, who doesn't really have a moment in this episode outside of the douches will continue to do their organ harvesting. They're like, haha, that bitch didn't get in the way. And we get like one longing shot of her putting on her mask. I would bet you dollars to donuts that she was the triangle mask. She shot him non-lethally. And because now she knows her way around what's going on with the organ harvesting and like what happens with the false bottom to, the cremation ovens where they drop it down for the organ harvesting, I think that she can take advantage of that to like let him get away with not actually dying. And then, I don't know, maybe she then decides to plan her own low-key revolution in trying to get him out.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because where was she in this episode? Like you said, they mentioned her at the beginning, like, oh yeah, we took care of her. And then that's it. There's a whole insurrection. We're seeing all these red jumpsuits running around. And the one person that we know who's in a red jumpsuit, we never see. And so, yeah, this person gets shot. And it's a bold move to shoot somebody in the chest non-lethally. Like these people.
I mean, just
I
that's Junho.
Yeah, right. And it's like, hey, what kind of training do you have to be so brave and brazen to be like, all right, I'm gonna shoot you, but it's not gonna kill you? How do you know? And so yeah, I think she probably is the one who shot him. It's again very fortunate for him, right? Or her, because he could have gotten shot by anybody. But she gets to him and she's like, all right, I'll shoot you. We'll sneak you, we'll put you down there and then I'll sneak you out, and then you can go home to your daughter. And that'll be her one thing that she managed to accomplish, this season. But next season, where does that leave her, right? She's got this guy out. Does she just go back to being another cog in the machine? Or is she going to try to shut Squid Game down? Is she going to switch allegiances? Because to me, it feels like she doesn't have an issue with the actual Squid Game of it all. She doesn't have any issue with these people getting murdered. She doesn't have any issue shooting these people, sending them to their deaths. It's like she draws the line at, organ harvesting. And it's a weird line to draw it at. You're already murdering these people. Why do you care what's happening to their organs?
Yeah. So let's go from pink to purple to a lot of red as we go to the stairs here, the lead up to the control room that we never end up reaching. And again, I knew that there would be eventuality that Inho would go full mask off by putting on the mask and would decide, especially when he's like, don't worry, I will take these two nameless men around the back by myself. But I was not expecting Chappell for Inho to probably once again, from Junho's perspective, fake his own death. To utilize the fresh kill that he made, also digs the knife in that much better by having Keihun be like, use this magazine, it's really going to help you. He's like, hey, you're right, it really helps you kill all the people that helped follow you into death. And he officially kills off 001. I mean, it's a fantastic way to close that loophole as well, because I'm assuming if he's just going to take on the front man duties for the rest of this, that the jig was really up here. He wants to really close off that narrative by being like, yeah, you're not seeing 001 again.
Yeah, and this is a trick we saw Ilnam do in season 1 as well, right? Like, well, oh yeah, lost the marbles. I guess I'll go around the corner to die, and then we see him pop up later on. So this is another one of those moments where I'm like, all right, we're going back to our old bag of tricks here, and I'm looking at Inho, and I'm looking at Ilnam again. I'm thinking, huh. Y'all got a lot of similarities, you know. What is the relationship between these two people, and is it even going to matter with Ilnam's, I'm sorry, Inho's brother, Junho, out and about looking for this place, because he's looking for his brother who's now back in charge, right? He's like, all right, that guy's dead. I went on to bigger and better things now. I've left it behind, and we're expecting Junho to show up at some point and try to shut this down too, if he ever makes it there. You know, we haven't talked about the people on the boat yet, right? But I was suspicious of this captain from day one, and I'm so happy that I was, because that guy sucks.
Chappell, you're a great sense of judgment if this fortified that, if anything. But yeah, so this again builds to this inevitable moment when I would give a lot of credit to Keihun and Jung-jae. Maybe Inho was telling them, like, purposely get killed, but like the two of them take down a fair amount of these workers. I love the trick with the mask as a distraction point so that Jung-jae can take them down. But they end up on their knees in front of the front man. And I would say, on the one hand, yeah, it kind of sucks that Keihun still doesn't know that 001 was the front man. On the other hand, again, if my assumption is correct that they're just going to resume the games, Inho's playing the long game. He wants that final moment to come where he's able to somehow keep Keihun alive until a moment where, like, he has him face to face, takes off the mask, and was like, yeah, the call was coming from inside the house. And then maybe he'll firsthand kill him. In this moment, that is clearly not going to happen. A lot of taunting, though. The front man tells him, player 456, did you have fun playing the hero? Look closely at the consequences of your little hero game. And if Keihun didn't see them with all the people that had died leading up to this, he certainly does now, as Inho decides to point a gun at him, goes right over about 45 degrees to his right, puts a bullet in poor Jung-jae, who his final words are just like him looking confusingly / kind of pleadingly at Keihun. He dies. We get like a full Walter White, penultimate episode, Ozymandias of Breaking Bad moment where he's like held down to the ground, wailing at the dead body of his friend. And that's how we end Squid Game Season 2, with his elimination. So again, you and I, from various perspectives, knew that this would come. But talk to me about how you felt once it actually ended up happening.
Yeah, like I said, I really started to care a lot more about Jung-jae in this episode, and throughout the season, it's been obviously a rocky road. But Keihun doesn't have a lot to his name anymore. He doesn't have a lot of family. His daughter is, he's somewhere ignoring her existence, and so like this is his only thing that like makes him see home here. This is somebody who we know has his back.
See home.
Yeah, exactly. And we know he has his back. At first, it was questionable, right? Like, hey, that guy's a little greedy too. He was willing to vote to stay when he really should have voted to leave. But he seemed to be all in. They really gave us a perfect arc to get in on this, almost like this buddy cop comedy between the two of them. It's like, oh yeah, these two knuckleheads are going to put their heads together and take down Squid Game. Now it's back to Keihun being just by himself, like it's you, and he has this small militia of people behind him, but we don't even know if they're going to survive, right? Like they survived the season, but how do you let these people who just tried to do an insurrection by murdering the guards, how do you let them go back to the game? Sure, they have to play the game, but shouldn't they be punished in some type of way for shooting half of the staff here? So you have to imagine that his death, on top of all of the other potential losses they had in this episode, is really going to hit close to home long term. And we have to see Keihun go at it on his own in the end. Eventually, it will be Inho versus Keihun, and Jung-jae had to go so that we could get to that storyline.
Yeah, I really do think that the Keihun we're going to see coming back to these dorms is going to be the version of him that we saw in the season 1 finale in like the year after he left, especially in the wake of his mother's death, where he kind of was just a walking zombie. He had the beard, his hair was grown out, because again, think about how broken his spirit must be at this point, that he came in to the Squid Game again confident he would send a message. And if anything, there was at least a failsafe of how Junho would eventually find him and bust up the entire operation. Both of those have failed miserably up to this point. Not only that, he was the one that was leading this charge that ended up killing his friend. This was not even like a Song-woo, oh, you were my friend, but you're still doing a lot of sketchy shit in the Squid Game, but I'm still really affected about the fact that you ended up dying. If that got him in that state at the end of season 1, this is going to devastate him even more. Because Jung-jae was like his number one guy in his pocket, following him into the line of fire, and got killed specifically because of him, as Inho is going to taunt as he puts a bullet in him. I really think this is going to break him. To your point, there are some characters by his side, but I would imagine that kind of like when the pentathlon game happened and a lot of people were like, oh, this guy knows nothing. I think he's going to become a bit of an outcast initially, because he was somebody that has really proven that he knows nothing, that he has no power at the end of the day, that no matter what, they were just kind of letting him play out this charade, this facade, until the actual reality of, yeah, we own you, we have all the guns, we can kill you at any point in time, ends up coming in. So I think unfortunately, we're going to be dealing a lot with sad sack Keihun, in my opinion, until maybe he enters that game, sleepwalks his way through it, and it's like, all right, at least I'm going to maybe try to win this time and see if I can come face to face with the front man and really take care of him once and for all.
Yeah, this feels like they almost neutered him in a way, like it's like, or he's very much defanged, he's the guy who's like, no, we got to do this. This is our only shot. And he just sees everything that he believed to be true, just kind of torn apart. And it's like, he could go one of two ways, right? He could either be like, like, oh no, this is now my supervillain origin story. And now I will take you down. I'm about to John Wick this thing, but it does feel like
Jung-jae the dog then in this example?
I think so, but I don't think that's how this is gonna go at all. I think you're more you're probably more accurate with your read that this is like, no, this isn't Gohan watching Goku die and then going to the next level. Right. This is him like, no, what am I supposed to do? This is all my fault. How am I going to live with this?
I'm trying to remember. I think season 2, spoiler alerts for Dragon Ball Z. Was it Goku dying or was it, I think it was Krillin
Krillin. Goku watches Krillin die, and so then
that's what it was. Yeah, got that. That was the Frieza saga when Goku watched Krillin die when he tried to do the Destructo disc and ends up getting cut in half, and that's when Goku first goes Super Saiyan.
Exactly. And then you got, Cell games where, Gohan is like, wait, okay, Goku's dead. Now I got to step up, like we've seen this before. But
no, I'm remembering now. It was the head of Android 16. Do you remember this? Like the really big friendly Android. And he's like, I'll always love you, Gohan. And then Cell smashes his head and that's what causes Gohan to
is like, oh no, this is crazy talk. I got to kill him. Yeah. All the Dragon Ball Z references aside, I think that this is very much going to be a broken human. I think that he probably will get there eventually, right? Like that's the thing. Maybe it'll be Minsu or somebody just that we didn't think that he would connect with as much, that like it's like the last straw, like this guy who clearly has no business being here, who's made it through the Squid Game almost to stumbled his way through here, right? Who has made it through these skirmishes, who other people have been discounting. He's the last person this guy is holding on to, and then that helps him level up. But we're going to get into a lot of his darkest headspace, I think, coming into this next one, because they did a really good job of saying, this is your fault. This is you. If this would not have happened, and I don't subscribe to that. The Squid Game was happening with or without this man showing up. 455 people were going to die, So at the very least, maybe you were able to convince some people that it's just not worth it. And you did take out some of these, actual villains who signed up to shoot these people and murder them. So I don't think all of it is his fault, but I think he's going to believe that it's his fault, right?
Yeah. Do you think that one of the reasons why the O's are so pissed off is because when they hear so many people want to quit, they're like, there are so many people waiting at home who apply year after year for Squid Game. You took their spot and you just want to leave the game at this point?
Right. Like people would die for this opportunity. Literally will die for this opportunity.
Fire the entire casting team. They cast so many quitters in this season.
Right. And that's the thing. They were given the opportunity to vote. And there were a ton of people who were like, yeah, what did I sign up for? We saw cooler heads prevailing on the exercise. We're like, I don't know what's going on here. Whereas the O's are either super competitive. We're like, I think I could take it. Crazy gamblers, or they're in a spot where they're between a rock and a hard place, where it's like this is not a choice. This is an ultimatum. It's hey, do this or die on the outside. And so they have no choice but to do this. I could definitely see them be upset about people squandering these chances. Like you got put here and you're voting against what I believe is my best interest. Like if you want to quit, but don't try to take us down with you. I need this money. I can't just afford to go back home. I don't have anything to go to. It's a very weird game that we're playing here. I do think we should talk to casting about maybe like how they're choosing these people, because some of these people feel like had they known Sarah Beth is going to start murdering people episode 1, I don't think they would have showed up for work today. I don't think they would have showed up for the game.
Right, exactly. Give them a little bit of like a preseason boot camp or something like Survivor
Yeah.
School. Well, let's just sort of do the Ann Peggy, I think, of storylines before we finish things up, which is, of course, everything going on with Junho that, yeah, surprise, surprise, something we clocked a while ago ended up being confirmed here that Captain Park is bad. He ends up killing the drone pilot, clearly after he caught him sabotaging the drone. Again, the larger question I have was how long has he been in on it, in on it? I still maintain that it would be interesting to have him basically in on it from the beginning, that he had been in the pocket of production since he picked up Junho, that Inho's like, I could shoot this guy off a cliff, but he's still my brother at the end of the day. I have complicated feelings. But yeah, kind of a nothing burger from this. RIP drone pilot, I suppose.
Yeah, we saw this coming a mile away. We knew
Yeah.
that the captain could not be trusted. But you're right. We don't know if he is on the payroll to make sure they don't find the Squid Game, or if he was just there, he was there to save Junho, or is it like, okay, now that I've saved you and I see what your plan is, I can't allow you to stop the plan. Maybe he's in crazy debt and he's like, I'm waiting for next season's Squid Game and you can't make this stop. I got to make sure that there's another go round just so I can get in.
I
Who
made it to
knows?
finals last round. I got to make sure it keeps going.
Right, you can't just go and stop this thing. This thing could be great for me. I need the money, or maybe he's related to one of these people that we've met as well. Because I have some questions about how all these people are tied together, and is he just on the payroll? We don't really talk about the payroll too much because there's so many moving pieces. These so many jumpsuits. How much are they getting paid? Who is bankrolling this operation? And then how many moving parts do we have? We know we only have like one recruiter out who was going around.
And he's no longer with us.
Right. I was like, check Indeed. I'm pretty sure his job is already posted. But the captain clearly has a role too. And I just don't know if it's a personal role or if it's a professional role. Like, is this his job to just make sure that this, like, all right, no matter what you do, make sure Junho doesn't, show up. And what was he doing with the drone? Was he just like, oops, it broke? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just really goes to reflect, again, much like in a sequence like the end of the mole of, oh yeah, he ended up, leading them to the bunker that got blown up. He ended up leading them to this island with the tracker in the bait. And here, I think, especially knowing that they're making use of drones, like he was probably going to make it so that it doesn't fly or the camera malfunctions at a certain point. Maybe they had gotten very close to the island and he's like, all right, I got to sabotage all attempts here. But I mean, they're able to also easily excuse the fact that, this guy went overboard. What can we do now? We can't use the drones anymore. Even though I don't think he initially wanted to kill the drone pilot, this was a very easy way to do it. So I think the question is when, not if, Junho ends up figuring out his deceit. And also, will it come at a time that, like, in the process, it shipwrecks them on the island?
I would love to see how, the moment, right? There's two moments I'm really waiting on. I'm waiting on that reveal where we find out, okay, when Junho finds out about the captain, because I know it's going to either be like he's going to stumble up on him doing something weird because, he's killed all his witnesses right now, right? So it's not like anybody can go and snitch. So it's going to have to reveal itself eventually, or the captain's just going to have to look at him and say, hey, sorry, but, you're fighting a losing battle here. I'm on the payroll. But on the other hand, I'm waiting on the Inho reveal too. I'm really waiting on him to decide, when is he going to, address Keihun as himself? Is it going to be when Keihun wins the game and he's like, now you get to meet the front man and it's me again, like when is that moment going to happen? Because you want to talk about a face crack. These two people are not going to be okay when they realize that they have been being betrayed left and right by the people that are closest to them in this game.
Last thing I want to bring up is, again, this little taste, just a smidge of a stinger here. It does seem like, now it's interesting because I did think initially when I first saw this, could this be a flashback to Inho's version of the Squid Game, which I don't think is outside the realm of possibility of us seeing, where it's like, okay, this was one of the games, like a proto version of Sarah Beth that Inho had to face. But regardless, what we see are a few players walk into this indoor space where there is the Sarah Beth doll again, and
Mhm.
there is also a matching boy, a his and hers, if you will, who looks quite delightful and quite menacing. And we also see like a railroad version of a literal red light and green light. So, Chappelle, is this like on the early seasons of Survivor where they would do like a second chances challenge at the end of, okay, here are all these elements from previous challenges? Maybe there's like a gauntlet when it gets down to enough players where, okay, they have to do red light, green light, but now it's twice as hard. Now they do a pentathlon, but now they have to do all 5 tasks. They have to do mingle, but only with the people that are left at the end.
I don't know, because even when it being red light, green light, it's like, are y'all really gonna do red light, green light again and just add another Sarah Beth? It just feels like that's a little like, like you had the opportunity to do anything and that's what you do. I couldn't tell if this is like a new set, is this a
Right.
new place? Is this a new Squid Game? What if we're not even at the Squid Game proper anymore and we're at a different, like a spin-off Squid Game, another one that's running simultaneously?
Oh, hosted
Because
by Mr. Beast. I've heard about that.
yeah, I mean, it happens, right? These people, all these copycat Squid Game people out here making their own games. To me, it felt like, yeah, this is Squid Game, but it's not the Squid Game that I remember. So I don't know what they're about to do with Sarah Beth and boy, Sarah Beth.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. It is enough of a tease though. I think again, to the point of maybe some people feeling like this episode was a bit out of left field in that it didn't necessarily have a lot of games as a part of it or any. This is maybe a bit of a teaser for those people to be like, don't worry, we're still going to get back to the good stuff, the stuff that you like, and maybe now baked in a lot of the high stakes that are involved from this failed revolution. Chappelle, overall thoughts on season 2 of Squid Game. To your point, it does, especially at the end of this, feel like it is much like Wicked, the end of part 1 of a whole 2-part process. But now that we are halfway through that process, I suppose, what were your thoughts about getting to watch and talk through these several episodes?
Well, of course, I've been enjoying talking to you about them and kind of speculating what's
Likewise,
going on. No, this has been a blast,
this has been
but
so much fun.
I do feel a way about waiting so long for you to give me 7 episodes of a television show. I had to say I have the same issue with a lot of shows though. This is not Squid Game specific. This is just my personal taste. You're dragging these shows out to make more money out of them, and it makes sense from a money standpoint. But from a consumer standpoint, it's almost like I feel like it's better packaged if you told me this was a movie, right? If you tell
Mm,
me it's an extra long ass movie, I gotta wait 2, 3 years for it. Fine, okay, fine. But when you tell me this is a television show, and that every week people are gonna want to talk about different aspects, different episodes, even us commentators and podcasters talking about it, breaking down things, speculating about things, it takes the fun out of it when we have all of them in a row because there are people who they're going to hear talk about it on a macro level. There are people who are going to really enjoy getting into the minutia in every episode of like, oh, let's break down these people and their motivations and all this other stuff. We deal with this all the time, but for
mm-hmm.
Squid Game, I really felt like season 1 like they could have just left it alone. I didn't need a season 2. I really could have left it at okay, he's got his red hair and he's off to go stop the Squid Game and never need to know what happens next after that. But now that we've opened this can of worms, I need them to really stick the landing. And season 2 felt like a bridge to all right, now we're moving toward what the end game is going to look like. And the end game has to be perfect. It really has to make up for we've come so far from the idea that this is just childhood games that these people are playing. This is now a war, in a way. And we're rooting for one singular person at this point, right? We're rooting for Keihun, and that's it. And I want to see that the show is able to tie these 3 seasons together to where it doesn't feel like, all right, it kind of lost its luster in the middle, and then we kind of went off the rails, spreading it out. So, so thin across these last 2 seasons that could be potentially 3 different season drops. So I have a lot of feelings, Mike. I'm not sure how if I love the fact that they did this for season 2.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed a lot of it. I think this often comes with sequels, especially for some reason. The one that really comes to mind for me is Big Little Lies. Of okay,
Yes.
it was really well received in the first season, so of course they thought let's bring it back again, and like really nothing worked. Like they were not able to have lightning strike twice. I still think season 2 is a step down from season 1, which was like basically much like this Inho reveal and the Captain Park reveal, inevitable in that
Yeah.
it was just such a huge success, just something that took us by surprise in so many ways. And they definitely much like Captain Park, cast the net wide when it came to bringing in all of these new characters and keeping a fair amount of them still in the picture going into season 3. But that being said, I think a lot of the new stuff they did, I actually did enjoy. I'm happy they brought in those new games, and it did create for some very interesting, fun visuals, albeit unfortunately for our podcast sake, drawn out across multiple cliffhangers from the ending of one episode into the beginning of a next. But if you're binging it all together, I think it makes for a very fun time. I think some of these characters either like we really enjoyed or love to hate or somewhere in between, even if a lot of their fates were left up in the air. And I really, really thought the Inho as player 001 twist was fantastic. It was my favorite part of the season because this character was one of the biggest mysteries. It's the reason why Keihun gets off the plane. Is like, I want to take down the front man himself, the guy who's leading all of this. And we really wanted to find out more about him, considering that he was a previous winner. And granted, to your point, even though he was this big question mark all season and still might be, I feel like we got to know so much about him. I really do think we saw shades of the guy that won the games those first times, getting to see him like constantly dance this tango with Keihun when Keihun doesn't even know he's dancing to begin with. And then I gotta give him kudos for what he was able to pull off in the end.
Yeah.
He was able to be successful in his mission of really bringing Keihun to his doorstep just to kill his best friend in front of him.
Yeah.
Like this was far and away the MVP performance, the MVP character, and the MVP plotline of the season for me. I think the Noel twist on paper was really, really interesting. I think the more we got into it, the more it left a little bit to be desired. So I'm hoping to an earlier point, we'll get into more of that in season 3. The Junho stuff, again, I was like, okay, I guess we're basically done with him. Maybe we should have been, because I think
Yeah.
everything going on with the captain, like, Wusok has become a fun character, but considering that you and I saw the writing on the wall back in the first half of this season, like, it was only inevitable for it to happen. Maybe they had to keep it out there to build to an eventual reunion happening in season 3. But if there was like one big thing I would take away positively from watching season 2 was this group of new characters that I'm intrigued to see what they're going to do with in season 3, and finding out so much more, yet simultaneously nothing at all about Inho and how that is going to inform the character in season 3.
Yeah, Eno is definitely the standout here because I think after season 1, I felt like to me Squid Game was the villain, right? It was the
Mm-hmm.
actual game. He was the front man, but just the front man. Like this is not his game. This is something that he basically works for Squid Game, right? He's in charge, but this is not the something that he built from the ground up. We know he played in the game, he won the game. So we know that he applied, right? He signed up. He's like, "Oh, now I want to work for production now." But I think Squid Game season 2 really makes him the bad guy, right? Like he's
Mm-hmm.
in it, and it's a one-on-one, like you said, like almost like this invisible tango that he's doing with Ki-hoon, where he's moving these pieces around, he's playing these little mind games, and he's making sure he's in the mix for all of these big decisions that are being made. But under Kyun's nose, where he doesn't even realize that this is the guy he's fighting against. So it connects us a lot more to Inho as well. Like we know the villain he is in a way that Kyun does not. He has not seen the atrocities that we've seen because we know that this man is literally on the front lines with you, making decisions that are going to be detrimental to you in the long run, convincing you against your better judgment to do this, that, and other, and then putting the mask back on just in time to murder your friend and directly in front of you in cold blood. Like this man is a psychopath, and as a villain, I respect him a lot more now that we've seen him kind of boots on the ground doing the legwork himself. He's put himself in the line of fire too. I'm sure they maybe have some type of instruction not to kill him, but he's played the games. We've seen him in the games just like everybody else was. Had they not been able to do some of the game in the little pentathlon, does he get, what happens at that point, right? He really took some big risks by putting himself in here. And I appreciate him a lot more now that I know that he's a villain who's not afraid to get his own hands dirty, right? It's not a system. He is the one who knocks.
Yeah. So as much as we enjoyed watching this, I think it was burgeoned so much more by the fact that you and I got together after every episode to talk about
Yes.
it. I know when it comes to these binge mode podcasts, it can be tough, but I have so much appreciation for everyone who has been listening, watching reaching out as well, whether you watched all of the season the day it dropped and either like nodded or shook your head at how much Chappell and I got wrong as we stopped down after each episode, or those that are some of the most patient people in the world and would wait until our daily episode would come out before they end up proceeding with the next episode. We absolutely love everyone who has checked it out. We will be back at some point in 2025 to break down season 3. This was such a pleasure, Chappell. Better late than never to finally have this collaboration. And it did in only the way it could for the two of us, with an extraordinary tangent about plot lines from Dragon Ball Z.
Yes.
So we'll see. You know, there might be one or two surprises coming after this finale recap, maybe some people that we want to talk to about their thoughts on Squid Game, but otherwise you will definitely hear from us again with Squid Game season 3 at some point in this year, in 2025. But Chappell, let's much like Inho return to his throne, let's open the plug back up again now that this is our final Squid Game podcast in terms of recap form.
Yes.
Anything you'd like to plug for the listeners out there for early 2025?
Oh my God. Yeah, there's so much going on in 2025 that I don't even know where to start. Deal or No Deal Island is back. And we
almost a week away, right, at the time this is coming out.
Yes. Deal or No Deal Island is upon us, and I will be covering it with Rob Sesternino and Jenny Autumn on the We Know Dondi Dondi feed here on RHAP and We Know RealityTV.com. It's an insane show that I love so much. And we talked about season 1. We've done an interview with Joe Manganiello to get ready for season 2. And we will be really breaking down every episode and all the wackiness that's involved in Deal or No Deal Island. Check it out. Make sure you subscribe to that podcast because it's going to be a good time. You can also catch me on RHAP talking about various other reality TV shows on We Know ScriptedTV.com, talking about Sex Lives of College Girls. I think our final podcast for season 3 of Sex Lives of College Girls should be dropping soon as well. So check that out. And then catch me on my podcast, recapkickback.com, where I'm talking about whatever I want to talk about. Got a lot of holiday content out. I think we did Meet Me Next Christmas. We did How to Ruin Christmas. We're doing a lot of Christmas stuff for the month of December, but it's January. It's a new year, and we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Recap Kickback. That was February, the beginning of February. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do anything special for that, but check it out. Subscribe to my podcast. It's been a year. If you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting on? recapkickback.com/subscribe, or you can go to YouTube, youtube.com/@recapkickback to support that podcast and to keep up with everything else I have going on. Mike, I know you have a lot going on.
Yeah, so from a scripted perspective, we're finishing up Silo Season 2. Been covering that with Grace. Battlestar Galactica will make its return, don't you worry, with Josh Wigler once he comes back from his trip abroad. And plenty of other scripted stuff to come in early 2025 as well. Of course, over on the reality TV side of things, I'm always on the beat at parade.com. But I have a new beat. And in fact, people can check out the premiere of this new beat today, January 1st. I'm very excited to announce that we have a new RHAP podcast, The Reality Flash, which is our breaking news podcast. I will be bringing you, whenever big news moments happen in the world of reality TV, I'm bringing bite-sized podcasts to your eyes and ears, basically telling you what you need to know, why it matters, what the discourse is on social media, etc. There's a lot going on in the world of reality TV. And so I'm very excited to hopefully be this conduit to communicate to you all the important stuff you need to know about this wide sea of shows that seem to be ever growing. So you can check out the first episode today, where I look back on 2024 in reality TV and talk about some of the things that I'm most excited about in this year, 2025. And you can go to therealityflash.com to make sure you subscribe to all of that. And one of the things from this scripted perspective that I'm certainly excited for is the return of Squid Game for its 3rd and final season. Who knows when it might be coming, but we know that eventually it may not be the familiar recruiter, but we will see the proverbial man in the subway tunnel ready to let us know that Squid Game season 3 is on its way. And when it does, myself and Chappell will be back. This was such a great time. Everyone, let us know your thoughts in the comments on social media about this season overall, about the finale, about the podcast. It was such a great time to end/begin the year, Chappell. I would not have it any other way.
No, I cannot believe we are beginning the year by saying we talked about Squid Game, and there's so much more year to come. Hopefully, Mike, there'll be more opportunities for you and I to collaborate because this was so much fun.
Yeah, when not if, man. All right. So thank you all again so much for listening to these podcasts for Squid Game Season 2. We'll be back covering it at some point, but if not, you can certainly check out all the other stuff Chappell and I are doing out there in the RHAP universe. But until then, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.